Welcome to the Parenting Lab podcast. I'm your parent coach, Brittney, and I am here to guide you into the calm, clarity, and connection you're looking for as you transform your parenting from the inside out. Let's get started. Hey friends, and welcome back to the Parenting Lab. Thank you for joining me. Today we're diving into a topic I know that many of us wrestle with, sometimes even daily, and that is spiraling thoughts. Those loops where your brain just won't stop circling the same scenario, the same worry, the same what ifs. Maybe it's replaying an argument in your head, or overanalyzing a comment someone made, or running through all the worst case parenting scenarios until your nervous system is fried. Sound familiar? Yep, me too. I do it all the time. Spiraling is something we all do, but most of us don't stop to ask why. Why do our thoughts spiral out of control sometimes? Why do we get stuck rehashing the same scenarios, anxieties, or self-criticisms again and again? And, this part is important, what can we actually do about it? That's what today's episode is about. And by the end, you'll walk away with a framework to break out of those loops. 3 steps you can practice anytime you feel yourself starting to spiral. But let's start with the why. Because if you know me, you know I like to get curious about what's actually going on under the surface before we start throwing fixes at it. Spiraling is a protective function of the brain, all right? We're going to get into a little bit of brain science here today. Your brain thinks it's helping you by going over and over the same material again and again. It's trying to solve the problem, to prevent danger, or to make sure that you don't miss out on something important. Your brain is wired for ease and repetition. In other words, spiraling is your brain's attempt to control uncertainty. Here's the problem, though. Spiraling isn't productive. It's like being on a hamster wheel. You're moving, but you're not going anywhere. Instead of finding clarity, you stay stuck in anxiety. And instead of discovering solutions, you just rehearse your fears. The nervous system plays a role here, too. When you're in a heightened state, when your body senses threat, even if that threat is just a thought, you are more likely to get locked into a loop. Neuroception is your body's way of scanning for safety and danger. But it doesn't distinguish between real danger and imagined danger. That means your body can keep you trapped in fight or flight mode even if nothing is happening outside of your own head. So if you've ever wondered, why can't I just stop thinking about this? It's not because you're weak or you're broken. It's because your brain and your body are doing exactly what they are wired to do. But just because spiraling is natural doesn't mean that it has to be your default. So before I get into the steps of how to break free from this pattern, I want you to think about how spiraling actually impacts your life. When we spiral, we lose presence. We're not here. In the moment, with our kids, with ourselves, we're usually somewhere else, trapped in the land of, what if, or I should have done this. Spiraling also reinforces shame. So think about it. How many spirals are about how you messed up, or how you're failing, or how you're not enough? Those loops aren't neutral. They're almost always judgmental. And when we stay in that loop long enough, we actually start believing it. And finally, spiraling really drains our energy. It eats up mental and emotional and physical bandwidth that could be used for healing and connecting and creating. So that's why it's important to learn how to interrupt this spiral and why it's so powerful. It doesn't just help you feel better in the moment, it actually helps you reclaim your energy and your presence and your clarity. All right, so now we're ready to talk about the framework. These are 3 steps that you can use when you feel like your thoughts are spiraling out of control. All right, so step 1, look for patterns. Start by asking, what is the pattern here? What's going on? Are the same types of things triggering you? Are certain behaviors and others bringing up the same emotional reactions? Maybe your spiral always starts when you feel excluded. Or maybe it's when your child refuses to listen, or maybe it's around your finances. Patterns matter because they show you where the loop lives. And once you can name the pattern, you actually have more power to step outside of it. So for example, if you notice that every spiral begins after you're scrolling social media, that's a pattern. It tells you that your brain is using comparison as fuel. If your spirals always begin after a conflict with your partner, that's another pattern. Your brain is stuck trying to fix relational tension by rehearsing it over and over and over. So step 1 is really about awareness. Notice the triggers. Map the loops. Ask yourself, where does this spiral usually begin? Step number 2, look for evidence. Spirals thrive on assumptions and worst-case scenarios, but most of the time they're not rooted in truth. They're rooted in fear. So if your spiral is telling you, I'm a terrible parent, pause and ask yourself, what is the actual evidence? Did you feed your kids today? Did you hug them? Did you show up in ways that matter, even if you didn't do it perfectly? That's evidence. Or if your spiral says, they must be so mad at me, ask yourself, do I know that for sure? Or am I just assuming that based on my own insecurities? Evidence breaks the loop because it forces you back into reality. It grounds you in what's actually true instead of what your fear is whispering. Now, does that mean that the evidence will always tell you that you're fine? Not necessarily. Sometimes the evidence might reveal that yes, you did lose your temper with your child. But even then, evidence leads to clarity. You can repair, you can change, you can do better next time. The point isn't to always prove that you are perfect. The point is to bring your thoughts back into alignment with reality. And that brings me to step 3. Look for alignment. If the same situations or thoughts keep coming up, there's usually a reason. And that reason is often about alignment or misalignment with your core values. Think of it this way. Spirals are often signposts. They're pointing you towards something that feels off or unresolved or maybe out of sync with who you want to be. So if you keep spiraling about discipline, it might be because the way you're handling discipline doesn't align with your values. If you keep spiraling about your work, maybe it's because you're living out of step with what really matters to you. This step is about zooming out and asking, is this thought or this behavior or this situation aligned with the parent that I want to be, with the person that I want to be? If it is, you can remind yourself, hey, this is in line with my values, so I can let this spiral go. And if it's not, you can make adjustments that bring you closer to that sense of alignment. All right? So let's recap. Step 1, look for patterns. Notice what's triggering you, your spirals, and when they tend to show up. Step number 2, look for evidence. Separate the fear from what's actually going on. And step number 3, look for alignment. Use your spirals as signposts pointing you back to your values. So here's the truth. Spiraling isn't about weakness, it's about humanity. But you don't have to stay stuck there. With awareness and evidence and alignment, you can interrupt the loop. You can reclaim your energy, and you can show up more fully for yourself and for the people that you love. So my hope is that when you catch yourself starting to spiral, you'll pause. Just take a breath and practice these 3 steps. Because the more you practice, the more natural it becomes to interrupt the loop before it swallows you whole. All right, friends. That's what I have for you today. If this episode resonated with you, I would love for you to share it with a friend who gets in these spiraling loops too, because let's be honest, we all do. And if you haven't already, please hit the follow button so you don't miss our next conversation. Thank you so much for being with me here each week. I will see you next time where we talk about the art and science of parenting and put your parenting to the test. Thank you for listening to the Parenting Lab podcast. For our complete catalog of online courses, free resources, or to join our mailing list, please visit theparentinglab.org. See you next time.